that scares me. Something about carrying too much. And maybe I'm afraid I'm not giving just enough. Or taking much too much. Then teach me I want to learn how to love. There's something about sharing those secrets. And it's the secrets I try to hide from myself. And I don't understand. I want you to know. And if no one will help me to love, then teach me I want to learn how to love. In a classroom, there's no room big enough to hold it. All you think I know that I trust you. I'm so glad you gotta have it inside of you. And no one can take it away. There's something about love. Ooh, it just messes with me. It's the feeling I feel when I'm feeling you. Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing love. You will be my stay. 'Cause I'm willing to learn. I'm ready to learn. Teach me how to love. How to love. Teach me, yeah, how to love. Teach me to feel, teach me to talk, teach me to hear your love. I want you to have the gift of love. Teach me to love, teach me to hold, teach me to need, teach me to feel. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition to African Centered Sacred Science Sunday, formerly known as Serendipity Sunday. I am Asar. I am your facilitator this morning. I pray that things are really well with you wherever you are, and that you understand that whatever you're going through is an opportunity for you to grow through. Well, it's another Sunday morning. And as you rise this morning, I ask that you take some time and position yourself for maximum participation, perhaps sitting upright on the side of your bed or your favorite chair, or sipping a warm cup of chocolate or a hot cup of tea or whatever your beverage may be. That you post a sign outside your door saying, do not disturb. And that you not try to flip through your text messages as you wake up this morning, but you be very present to this presentation. Oftentimes we miss the fullness of what is going on right in front of us because we are somewhere else. So if you tuned in this morning, I appreciate it. And you're here because there's something that's calling you here. You're not here just because it's something to do on Sunday morning. You're here because there is something that you come to receive. So just position yourself for maximum participation. For those of you on the Zoom room this morning, good morning. For those of you who are joining me by way of the Oasis Spiritual Center's channel, we welcome you this morning. Pray things are well with you. If you can make comments in the comment section, I will go. Just let's jump right on in and get started this morning. We are over into deeper into Black History Month. For some, we only acknowledge that during the 28 days of February, but I am Black to the core. I'm Black, blickety Black. That is, I follow after the expressions and those things that represents the best of who we are. Every day I wake up as a Black man and I embrace it. Every day I wake up inside of the experiences of my ancestors. I wake up inside of the possibility of what I could possibly be. And all of that is tied to being Black. Okay, so this week we're dealing with love. And I gave you an email. I sent you an email. You should have received it. And that email was an interesting photo with a caption in it that I got a couple of people called or text me, says something wrong with your image don't match necessarily the actual the verbiage that you have there. And so I had to explain to a couple people that truly living a loveless life is what we should be aspiring to live a loveless life. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I believe that we have a total misconception or we have a bad working definition of what love is, even though we aspire to higher ideals of love. If you have your Bible, you can turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and many of you can go there without even turning, because you know that's the love chapter, and it talks about the very tenets of what love is. But I find it interesting that this set of scriptures that are the tenets of what love is have not ever been obtained inside of not only the religious system of Christianity, but in the lives of so many who call themselves, so many who identify as Christians, such as myself, but I'm a modified Christian. So don't just take that at face value when you hear me say I am one who is Christ-like, one who is Christian, one who is Christ consciousness. You need to unpack that, because I say it from a vantage point of an African-centered sacred science that has been co-opted, that has been adulterated, and I have begun to unpack the very concept so I don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So for many of you, the image and wording that was on that email that I sent is conflicting. Perhaps you're saying that the couple, they look as though they are in a state of bliss, of abundance love, but the statement of living a loveless life don't match. Well, I intentionally paired this image with the messaging. According to the dictionary, loveless is defined as having no feelings of love. For many, love is simply having a particular feeling. Many a couple that I have coached and counseled have showed up in my practice stating the relationship was over because it was loveless, because there was no longer the spark. The reality is no relationship can survive solely based on the feeling state. And that's how we define love. A feeling, a good feeling. That's an emotional thing. Now, it's good to have that as an attribute of your relationship, but your relationship can't be solely built on the good feeling that comes with love when you first meet that feeling, the butterflies, when you hear the person's name, when you smell their cologne, their perfume, when you see their shadow showing up on your doors. But that you can't let that be the definition of what love is. And we're going to unpack that this morning. We're going to begin to look at that, because I think many have unrealistic views of what love is. And many people are choosing not to even get into quality relationships today because what they have seen manifested inside of what we call love. So I want to kind of say a couple of things to you this morning. One of the things I found quite interesting in my reflecting over this topic this week is the divorce rate is highest among, guess who? The divorce rate is highest, yes, among Black women. Their divorce rate exceeds the number of marriages that they are having in any particular year. Now, you may say that sounds skewed, that sound, why are they focusing on? But that's the reality. When you look at the state of our community today, not only is the divorce rate so high amongst Black men and Black women, but we see that the choice not to even enter into the union of marriage. And when I talk about marriage, I expand it beyond the traditional definition of standing at the altar, aspiring to reach certain vows that very few people ever really hit. But I'd say it's about commitments that we need to begin to make to one another in the African American community, in the African community. And it's not just commitments to relationships where there's a level of intimacy involved, but there's a relationships period. So some of the things we must understand that divorce is really high for a number of reasons, not just in the African community, but divorce is high in the Western society. The lowest divorce rates is found in the Asian communities, and is not so much tied to their race or ethnicity, but it's tied to their belief systems. It's tied to the cultural mores that they stand on. It's tied to their spiritual system. So one of the things I want you to be aware of that there's usually 10 reasons why individuals who are in a relationship choose to break the relationship off, or if they're in a marriage, the marriage is about to be dissolved. The number one reason, I'm gonna go right down through them. The number one reason for divorce is marital infidelity. You know, somebody is, there's can be emotional infidelity. It could be physical infidelity. It usually starts with the emotional infidelity, unless it's a one-time experience. It usually leads up to that full relationship that is labeled as you're not holding to the fidelity of the relationship. The second reason is financial disagreements. The third is weight gain or body changes. One that often shows up is lack of intimacy. Somebody will show up saying there's no intimacy there. Lack of equality, not feeling like individuals are equal partners in relationships. Lack of preparation. Many people enter into this thing called marriage, into contracts, into unions, and they've really not prepared themselves for that. Another big reason for divorce is poor communication. That is, not standing in your voice, or not knowing how to say what needs to be said, or choosing not to say what needs to be said at the risk of your lifestyle changing. A lot of people stay in relationships because what? The apparent advantages of being in a relationship. So poor communication is a big reason. The number 8 reason is addiction. And when we talk about addiction, we're not just talking about substance abuse, drugs, alcohol. It could be pornography. It could be shopping. It could be anything that takes over your life and compromises the decisions to stay within the bounds of the relationship, or to hold fast to the commitment that one has agreed to or made. So addiction. Another one, and this is a big one, it's a silent one. It's low on the scale, but I believe it's really higher than its position because of the secrecy, because of the shame, because of the thing that goes on behind closed doors. And that's abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, even religious abuse. A lot of people stay married for years because of the tenets of their faith. It's not a happy, it's not a cohesive, it's not a harmonious relationship, but people stay married because of the tenets of the faith, because I'm a Christian, because I'm a Catholic. So they stay married. So that's a form of abuse. And the last one is different religions or core belief systems. A lot of times people, when they enter into relationships, they enter into relationship based on the physical aspect of the attraction, the way the way you felt when you were around that person. And you never really drill down into who is that person? What do they think? What are their core beliefs? Believing that love can take you through everything. So the song we started with this morning was Blue Magic, released in 1976 by Attico Records. The song is beautiful. It's one of the songs that I was 16, so that's when you first get in contact with your feeling self and perhaps falling in love. And falling in love is dangerous. Falling, period, is dangerous. Did you know that? When you fall, you actually can hurt yourself. I don't care how much you brace yourself for a fall, there's an impact to your person. So we got to begin to reframe this whole conversation about loving relationships and entering into commitments, expecting to be shot with Cupid's arrow. That gets you a lot of trouble there. So we want to be a little more careful about the verbiage we use or pay attention to it. So when you joined me this morning, you heard the song by Blue Magic. And it's a song that's really only about 4 minutes long. So for those who came in on the backside, I'm going to drop it in right now. So that way you can be present to this conversation. So listen to these words. There's something about love that's sweet. There's something about caring too much too much. Teach me how to love. There's something about sharing. And it's the secrets I try to hide from myself. And I don't understand, but I want you to know. And if I would help you, then teach me I want to do. How to love. Wow, that song, that is like the song. I don't care where I'm at. If I hear that song and I'm in a set, I have to dance. That I'm a stepper, and that's a classic. They actually happened to have played that on yesterday at an event I sponsored, and the floor was packed. People were singing it with their eyes closed. They were dancing. It took them back. So when we talk about love, when we talk about relationships, we learn our biggest lessons through relationships. And so this morning, I'm really talking about Black love. I'm talking about something that is innate in all of us. We desire to experience it. We've regulated it just to the love of the opposite sex. In today's society, same sex, people are doing their own things. But when I talk about love, I'm not just talking about the intimacy of love. I'm talking about the interaction of what love is and how to learn it. So when you look at that song, it says, teach me how to love. He says, there's something about love that scares me. And many people are in that same boat today. There's something about caring too much. Now, listen, can you really care too much? You can't have true love and put a limit on how much you care. And he says that maybe I'm afraid I'm not giving enough or taking too much. Then teach me. I want to learn how to love. He says there's something about love. There's something about sharing those hidden secrets, and it's the secrets that I try to hide from myself. When we're in relationships with people, you have to come up against the things you have hidden from yourself. Relationships is not so much about you, it's about what you're seeing in front of you. And what you see in front of you oftentimes is a reflection of an aspect of you. He goes on in that song and he says, there's something about sharing those hidden secrets, and it's the secrets I try to hide from myself. And I don't understand, but I want you to know. And if no one will help me to learn to love, then teach me. I want to learn. But the most powerful part of that song is this next set of verses. He says, teach me how to love. He goes on in reflection. He says, you can't learn love in the classroom. There's no room big enough to hold it. Oh, and you can't find love in a test tube. I'm so glad you've got to have it inside of you. You got to have it inside of you, and no one can take it away from you. There's something about love. It amazes him, he said. It amazes me. It's the feeling I feel when I'm feeling you. Oh, amazing, amazing love. You will be my mystery love, because I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to learn, to teach me to learn to love. It goes on. Teach me to love. Teach me to fear. Teach me to feel. Teach me to touch. Teach me to hear your love. I want you to educate my love. So here, this song is a powerful song, because you hear a man talking about his desire to love. And even if we take that into a personal position this morning, it's about each of us being open to love. But we have to understand the definition that we have ascribed to is based on romanticism, is based on things that are external, it's based on feelings. But true love is not a feeling, but love is a decision. And many people have not grown or matured to the level that they can exercise true love. So when we look at the society that we live in today, we see that the divorce rate that is extremely high, the breakup rate, the individuals choosing not to enter into quality relationships. People can't even get along, to get along today, because we have lost the essence of what love is. So this morning, my question is, what is the solution? For those of you who study sacred science or African-centered sacred science, it could be something from the western coast of Africa or the eastern coast of Africa. It has to do with principles. And so one of the principles that we all are somewhat familiar with is the principle of Ma'at. Okay, inside of Ma'at, there are seven, or the concept of Ma'at. There are seven principles that make up Ma'at. And these 7 principles are really essential to a quality relationship. When we talk about relationships, it's that means that you're engaging someone. And the first relationship you should be engaging is the relationship with yourself. How can you totally engage someone else unless you know yourself, or unless you're willing to know where you start and where you stop? We have to understand that it's through relationships that we come face to face with who we are. Left to ourselves, we wouldn't face those secret parts of ourselves. So we have these relationships we enter into. It may not be intimate. It could be you go to work on a particular job and you are in a relationship with a certain coworker, meaning you guys have certain tasks that you do together. And in the day-to-day interaction with that person, it causes you to reflect because you're looking at them, you're seeing things about them that you like, that you don't like, things that rub you the wrong way. And a lot of times we focus on something's wrong with that person, but usually that's bringing to the surface something we need to ask our own selves about. So we talk about the 7 principles of Ma'at being essential to having a quality relationship with self. There's 7 principles. There's truth, there's justice, there's harmony, there's balance, there's order, there's reciprocity, and there's propriety. I know oftentimes you hear people talk about Ma'at and they'll list out these things. They'll talk about righteousness. They'll talk about justice. They'll talk about these things. But for me, I see a lot of people espousing these things. For you cannot even walk inside of Ma'at and have anger towards another individual or harboring hate towards. Ma'at played out is when you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter, is really Ma'at being played out. But we don't do it. I don't care how spiritually astute so many people are claiming to be. I don't see them practicing or living out this principle. But I'm not here to judge. I'm just making an observation. So when we talk about love, let's begin to look at love from another perspective. There's a gentleman by the name of Gary Zukav. And he wrote a book called Spiritual Partnership some years ago. And at one point I taught the class, and I really found that he's hit on something. What he's done is he's really not purposely, because he's probably don't even know about the principles of Ma'at, but the principles of Ma'at are universal. The principles of Ma'at are truisms that are practiced, but under other names or other verbiages. But when you talk about spiritual partnerships, in his book, he says a spiritual partnership is a partnership between equals. So the first thing you have to understand to be in a relationship with anyone, if you're not equal, and that's a difficult one. When we look at partnerships between mothers with parents and children, there's no equality there. And so when we begin to look at relationships from the position of equality, they take on another expression, because if you don't want to be treated a certain way, you won't treat another a particular way. One of the things that I use as a litmus test was my own family of origin when raising my children. I remember the things that didn't feel good to me. I remember the things that I had to do that I didn't really want to do. And as I grew older and eventually had my own children, I made sure that I reevaluated some of those things. Like seldom, I can probably count on the one hand having to actually whoop in my children because I just felt like that was injurious and it affected the relationship. You know, it took some time to heal through some of the whoopings, and for some of my friends, they got beatings. And how can you love somebody that's beating you? So that's a whole nother story. But it's about partnerships. It's about equality. So a spiritual partnership, what we all need to unpack and begin to look at, is a partnership that's between equals for the purpose of growth, spiritual growth. And that comes right from the relationship expert, Gary Zukav. So he has 4 areas that we have to that he suggests that we look into and work on in our relationships. And those 4 areas are commitment, courage, compassion, and conscious communication and action. Well, I guess it's five areas, because action is essential to love. Love without action is not love. For most of us, love is just a concept. Love is an action thing. Love is a decision. So his first one he talks about is commitment. If you want to have a truly loving relationship, and I'm not just talking about intimate relationships, I'm talking about partnerships, I'm talking about agreements with individuals you encounter, you got to have a commitment. A commitment that is focused on what you can learn about yourself all the time in that relationship, especially your reactions from that person, such as does this person elicit or bring forward anger, fear, jealousy, resentment, and impatience instead of judging or blaming others or myself. I look at these things and say, why am I feeling this? When we talk about commitment, we're talking about notice your emotions by feeling the physical sensations in this energy center. So when you talk about commitment, you're going to be present to what you're feeling. You're not going to run from the feelings that don't feel so good. You're not going to keep running towards the feelings that feel good. That's why people jump out of relationship or go from relationship to relationship. They're chasing the high. They're chasing that when the endorphins are kicking off and things feeling good. You inside a commitment, you want to notice your intentions, such as you want to notice, are you blaming? Are you judging? Do you need to be right all the time? Do you want admiration and attention? Are you escaping into thoughts that take you outside of the relationship? Are you intellectualizing and trying to convince yourself to stay? The other point he talks about is courage. To be in a relationship with someone, it takes courage. It takes courage to be willing to allow somebody to see a side of you that may be your secret self. So with courage, you're talking about taking responsibility for your feelings, your experience, and your actions. So courage is about you being willing to be courageous and not blaming others and not even blaming yourself, but being present to what you're experiencing. Courage includes practicing integrity at all times. That's a difficult one, to have courage to be integrous. Okay. Integrous means holding fast to the commitments made, the agreements made. Okay. And you hold the integrity of that space of, I have this agreement with this person, with this employer, with these individuals on the team. We have to know that this often requires actions such as speaking when frightened, okay? Or when the frightened parts of your personality don't want to speak. So you got to stand in your voice. It takes courage to do that. Not speaking when you feel compelled to speak only. Okay, so you got to know, or speaking when you feel compelled. When your inner self voice says there's something that needs to be said, have the courage to say it. So in a relationship, you have to have courage. It takes courage to do or say the most difficult things. This includes what many have noticed, and if appropriate, when someone speaks or acts from a frightened part of their personality, okay, to be present to that, or sharing about yourself, what you are frightened to say. You may not say that with your person. That's why you go to therapists. You have coaches. You can talk about. Then they help you to prepare to enter into that conversation, to have the courage to do it. So you got to have, in a true relationship, if there's real love, there's commitment, there is courage, and there is compassion, that feeling state. Compassion means that I'm willing to change my perspective from fearful to loving. I'm willing to change my position from what I believe to what I need to know. Choose to see yourself and others in a loving or appreciative way. That's compassion, not only towards others, but compassion for yourself. Begin to release the distance that you feel from anyone. Now that's important, because when we talk about African Americans who have been injured, Africans in particular who have been injured by a system or racism, we have to learn to release the people We can deal with the system, but we have to learn to be forgiving. Now, see, you can't say you're going to forgive sometime and you're not going to feel, and sometimes you're going to hold on. Now, I do believe in holding people accountable. I do believe if you're being attacked that you have to protect yourself. But many of us are stuck in this old conversation of something that has happened. Okay, and not only has it happened, but we live in as though it still happened. The one thing I look at when I look at the Jewish community, they say it'll never again. And they've moved on, but they put some places, I don't know how they're going to avoid it, but evidently in their community, they have a strong statement that they won't allow it to happen again. And you can see that if you make a anti-Semitic statement, they are on you. And so we have to take the ownership of never again will we allow the abuse that took place to manifest. But we got to be open enough to know that just because you engage someone who looked like the oppressor, don't mean they still take on the mindset of the oppressor. So we got to learn how to move in compassion. We got to learn to be open to change, be open to the possibility of the person who I didn't like have made restitution and have had a change of heart. When we talk about being present, it talks about being present while others are speaking. That's a level of compassion, not replying, not being present, but positioning yourself to prepare a reply, or to be inside of a conversation in your head where you're judging, but to just be present and compassionate, open to receive, open to be aware, open to what is being presented. And the fourth one he talks about is conscious communication. Communication is a big one. Too many people don't have the strength or the courage to stand in their voice. To have conscious communication is, first of all, being willing to consult my intuition, being willing to listen to that inward voice and respond accordingly, to choose your intention before you speak or act, to be conscious of what is your intention. If what I'm about to say is contrary to my intention, if what I'm about to do is contrary to my intention, then I don't speak it or I don't do it. To be conscious in communication and action is to act from the healthiest part of your personality. So when we talk about love, we learn to love not in the classroom. You can't read it in a book. You don't get it just from the lecture, but there has to be a form of application. You must be willing to engage someone, even engage yourself, engage someone outside of yourself, and to be open for the possibility of that presentation that comes from that. So it's acting again from the healthiest part of who we are in our personality, rather than just caretaking, taking care of people or fixing things or teaching people or judging or blaming, but being present. It's about a healthy exchange. He goes on, and when he talks about conscious communication and action, he says, speaks personally and specifically rather than generally and abstractly. Use I statements. When you show up in a relationship, take ownership rather than we or you statements. And that's a big piece, to stand alone. Okay. In a relationship, you stand alone, juxtaposed to another person standing alone. And it's through the collaborations that we grow. There's a oneness of being that comes forth from this. And we want to learn that when you enter true relationships, you got to release attachments to outcomes. Some people are in bad jobs because they want to get to the 20-year mark. Bad relationships because they want to be able to say was married forever. But look what happened on the journey to forever. You lost who you are. Sickness and disease, all of those things are manifested in your life as a result of you going for the goal you set versus being present to the relationship that you're currently in, and what is it teaching you? What are you there to teach to somebody else? You don't have to subject yourself to abuse. You don't have to subject yourself to misuse. But you want to release the attachments, and people are attached to what other people will think, attached to what dad's going to say, attached to the idea of what the children going to think. You got to understand that you must know all relationships that you enter into. Are you there to receive a lesson or give a lesson? The best relationships it's a dance of giving and receiving. So you got to be attached to the idea of commitment, the idea of courage, the idea of compassion. So when we talk about this concept of love, we got to move beyond love being simply two people or people choosing to stay in close proximity as long as they agree, as long as they can get along. We have to learn to agree to disagree. We have to learn to know that what is the commitments that we entered into. Because when you enter into a commitment, you're going to have situations, you're going to have circumstances that will challenge the commitments. And I think one of the things that we have to do as a Black community, that we have to do as families need to come back around the table and look at what are the commitments. Couples with children need to come back to the table and say, what are our commitments? Okay, we had a commitment to ourselves, and then we had children, and the commitment to our children may trump the commitment to ourselves at this time. And so how do we make it a win-win situation for all involved? And so that may mean that you may stay in a relationship, but what keeps the relationship healthy is you're doing it with the express purpose of raising healthy children. It may mean that you separate. It may mean that you even divorce. But you keep in mind that we have produced from this relationship these children, and it's our responsibility to cultivate them. Not to get into the selfish act of, like many men, they just bounce and they don't take care of the children because the children are not under their roof. They're out of their mind, out of sight. No, for Black men, we have to take ownership for every child that we were responsible for. I'm for that. Sadly enough, some people have to be put on papers because they don't have the integrity to take care of what they need to. And the integrity of that person. It's not for you to think about what is going to happen to this person when you put them on papers. If they're not willing to do what they're supposed to do in the participation of raising that child, if they're not in the home, then their presence can be made by the financial support. And then it's not just sometimes just a financial support. It means making time to be present in that child's life, even though you can't be present in the life of that woman. And I'm talking to some brothers who perhaps picking this up at a later day, at a different hour. And when I look at our community, I see a lot of men who have just not taken on the responsibility of being a man. There's many things I can share with you about my own life that I have had to live inside of that. I've taken ownership of that. There was a time when my family hit a rough spot and there was separation. But I made sure that the lifestyle that my wife and my children were accustomed to living when I was present, that was still maintained. And it wasn't predicated because I did something wrong or somebody else did something wrong. No, because I understand the concept of love. Love is a decision, and it's not changed merely because two people are not seeing eye to eye. Now, even though this conversation is talking about the intimacy of love, I'm talking about when we talk about our community. We have to go back to the day where the community was the cause. What was good for us? I remember a day where you didn't drive through the neighborhood with music blaring with all kind of evasive and curse words. I remember the days where the pimps and the players was not on the block. There was the low end of the community. They would be in the backside of the community where you could find the strolls and all those things. No, but today you got the stroll is right in our community. The stroll is right in our living rooms because we don't have a true sense of what love is. We don't have a true sense of what commitment is, what values we need to hold. So as we move deeper into this month, as we know as Black History Month, as we know as the Love Month, reposition this whole conversation about love, about Black history. To be Black is the personification of love. When you look at what has happened historically to us as a people, but we still have the capacity to love. We love with the possibility that what has happened in the past won't happen again. Our hearts have a very difficult way of calcifying against the oppressor. We still, to this very day, hold on to ideas and views that the oppressors have projected onto us. Now, that you can love someone and not take on their madness, their sickness. You can love someone and stand your ground. And that's what we have to do as people of African descent. We have to stand our grounds. We have to let our voices be heard. We have to be the antagonist to those who we're in relationship with. We have to tell them, you can take those teachings out of your schools, but those teachings are the basic principles we want our children to know. Because once they know, never again will they be subjected to those things. So we have to make sure our best interest is always positioned, not just the individual's best interest, but the group's best interest when you're dealing with others outside of your community. So love is a choice. Love is a decision. And how beautiful it is when it is accompanied by feelings that feel good. But inside the commitment of love, you're going to bump up against feelings that don't feel so well. Decisions should not be made based solely on your feeling self, but you don't discount it. When you have something that is abrasive, or when you have a feeling that is contrary to what you want to experience or desire to experience, you stand inside of it and you ask yourself, where is this coming from? Sometimes that feeling needs to be addressed. And the reality of, even though I feel that the way, that's not the reality of what is going on. And so you need to learn how to harness your feelings and work with your emotional self. Because nobody wants a lifeless or a emotional less relationship, but we can't build our relationships solely on emotions. We can't build our partnerships based solely on emotions. Too many people jump out the boat because they hit a spot, they hit a season. For whatever reason, your loved one may be the person may be going through something, and they're not emoting what you are accustomed to them emoting. You're not picking up that vibe from them. Sometimes you need to check in with them and find out it's not always about you. It's about what's going on with that person. Ask them, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that? And if you're in a relationship with someone, if you have politicians, if you have preachers, if you have people who are positioning themselves as your leaders or guides, and they never ask you what you think about that, what you feel about that, then that relationship is not one that is built on spiritual partnerships and companionships. So that's all I have this morning. I pray something has been said that's uplifting and encouraging. I encourage you, first of all, to love yourself, because you can't love God whom you cannot see except you first love the God that you can see, and that's who you be. Once you start loving on yourself, knowing yourself, and begin express yourself, now you loving God because you are God. And once you are loving God, identify that you are God, you are equipped to enter into true quality partnerships and commitments with other people. But until then, if you're loving somebody without loving yourself, it's love gone wrong. That's all I have this morning. So before we close this morning, I just want to check in and see if there's any questions, any comments. I see, Courtney, I see your hand is up. I'm going to give you the mic there. Is there something that you had there, Courtney?
Hello. Yes. I just want to say thank you for this unexpected teaching, but I really appreciate it. I have learned a lot about what love is and what love isn't. And I really feel that I'm ready to open myself up to love, but I had to do a lot of work to get here. I had to make a lot of decisions about the way I govern myself and the way that I see myself. And it was a lot of internal work that needed to be done. And so what I've decided is that I see the dating landscape, um, and the way it looks. I really don't want any part of it if I'm going to do it the way the world does it. So, it may be that I may just the right one will just appear, but it may be that I may have to go on dates in order to get to that one. And so I've decided that the way the world does it, I just don't want any part of it. So I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it Source's way, and I'm going to listen. I'm going to go into the silence when I need to, when something doesn't feel right, when something feels off and it doesn't resonate. I'm going to, abort mission when it comes to that person. And I'm just going to love myself, not accept things that I'm not willing to accept from people, and just do it like that. I think we leave Source out of dating. I think you know what I'm saying? We leave Source out of dating. We somehow think that God can't be a part of the meeting process, the dating process, even the intimacy process. We want to separate all that. And I just feel that I just don't. I'm ready to be loved the way I feel that I want to be loved. And I'm ready to give love. I feel like I'm at my best when I'm being loved and when I'm loving someone. So even though I feel like I'm great now, I feel like that is something that, is within my destiny and something that I'm excited about doing. So I'm learning to not hold on to the past, to eliminate fear altogether. I'm not afraid of a negative occurrence. I'm only looking forward to meeting the right person, or meeting people, appreciating them for what they are, the lessons that they bring, the lessons that I can give, and just focusing on what I want and leaving it
Mm-hmm.
at that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pack that down, unpack that. So first of all, we have to all be understand that God is not out there. God
Mm,
is in here. We are God. So God
mm,
is very much part of this experience called life, this thing called love. I'll share something with you. After the death of my wife in 2010, I did enter into a relationship with someone, and that came to a abrupt end. And then from 2012 to about 2019, I really wasn't searching, seeking for. I was just experiencing life. And so I was at an event in Atlanta that I was called to every year. I would do the spiritual piece for them on that Sunday. It was a huge steppers event. And on this particular night, the night before, it was at the big event. I ran into the lady who I had been dating, and we took a picture together. And after we took the picture, I walked into the ballroom, and then I was standing in the ballroom, and this person came through the door, and the person asked me, "Hey, can you dance?" And I said to this person, "I can show you better than I can tell you." We danced one record. Being the inquisitive person I was, within that one record, I found out enough information I need to know about that person, and ultimately, that one dance ended into a relationship, and that's Cheryl. Those of you who know the lady that I date, Cheryl, I didn't meet her on a dating site. I had no clue I would be meeting her. I didn't even know that I would even have a long-term relationship with her, because she was in St. Louis and I was in Chicago. And I remember having a conversation with her, telling her what I wasn't going to do, that I didn't date. I lived on the western side of Chicago, and I didn't date women on the south side of Chicago. Why? Because of distance. So in my own mind's eye, I said it had to be convenient. But guess what
mm,
happens when you are present to spirit? When you say, "Teach me," when you say, when you allow source to present to you. something that is what I would consider to be more exceedingly abundantly than you can ever ask. Because when you go on a dating site, you're going to key in all keywords. You're going to create the algorithm. You're going to create that person you believe will be complimentary to you, where in all essence, you need some adjustments of your complimentary self. And so we have to be very careful when we go through the technical approach. Even this thing called dating, I say, get away from dating. Just enjoy life. If somebody cross your path and they ask to have an adult experience with you, take you for coffee or to go to a movie, be present to that. We got to stop putting so many definitions on things. We have allowed things to unfold. A seed that is sown eventually grows into what it always was. And so what we have to do is sometimes we try to control this thing called relationships. So we monitor who we attracted to. We monitor who we engage with. But sometimes you just have to be present to what shows up is what I need to see. What shows up is what I need to experience. Just like in the song by the Blue Magic, teach me. You can't find love in a classroom. There's no room big enough. You can't find it in a test tube. You cannot find it in a teaching. You have to be willing to be in the experiential state of relationship. And
I agree with that.
Yes.
And I have spent quite a few years not really participating in the dating aspect of things. I've taken a step back. I focus more on my spiritual journey. And I just, feel like maybe some effort on my part may be just right on time for right now.
Okay.
I say that I want love, but I haven't really been intentional about meeting people. So, I'm going to definitely continue to just be present.
You say, I'm open to a loving expression of life.
Yes.
And being open to a loving expression of life, the right people, the right situations, the right circumstances show up. You might just be in an event. Tonight, you go to an event. You have the most wonderful relationship. That may be the culmination of that. And that's it. Yeah. We have to know that we're in a very abundant universe. The universe will present to you. You won't be lonely in old age, except you say, I don't want to grow old. I don't want to grow old alone. You just put that into the universe. Yeah. You have to say, the universe is going to take care of me. We got to stop defining so rigidly this thing called life. Now, we can have another deeper conversation about relationships, the whole concept of marriage, why it's failing, why it's never worked from the Western perspective, why we keep subjecting ourselves to ideas that has been imposed from books, from religious perspectives that don't harmonize with who we are. We got to get back to some very tenets. And if we're living what Gary Zukov calls a spiritual partnerships, it's going to take care of that. A spiritual partnership that may be a friendship might end up being a long-term relationship that is intimate, that is what was traditionally known as a marriage. But it's all about commitments. It's about partnerships. Thanks for sharing that, Courtney.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Be open to the expression, how love shows up. Listen to some old love songs like That's the Way Love Is. Listen to some of them old music from the 60s and the 70s that talks about love. The love we hear today talked about is all about a booty call. It's all about what that person can do for you. It's all about the bling bling. Yeah. Can you just sit under a sunset? Can you just watch the sun come up? Can you just listen to children playing by walking through the neighborhood? We put so much false stuff on what relationships are all about. And then can we commit to creating healthy communities? Can we commit to making sure our children are okay? Making sure our children's children are okay? Realizing that the children we see is part of who we are. I mean, we just had to we need to reset in the Black community. It's not about selfishness of love. This my man, this my woman, this my family. We all are family. We all are one. I hope something was said. Thanks for putting me up on that soapbox this morning, Courtney.
You're welcome.
Good. And may your journey of love be filled with bliss, be filled with life's learning lessons.
Thank
All
you.
right. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for sharing. Excellent. If this ministry has been a blessing to you on my way out the door this morning, I extend the opportunity for you to be a blessing to us. Way you do that is you go to the website, www.oasisspiritualcenter.com, and you go to the giving tab and you go find the platform that fits you. If you're giving by way of Cash App or by Zelle, all you have to use is the following number. Cash App or Zelle, you can use 708 368 1076. 708 368 1076. That's all I have. For those of you who will be joining me on this week, we will be going into the 8 weeks or 4-week course on intentions and manifestations on a deeper level. Look for the email to come out with that. It's not too late to get in on that class. So that's all I have. Peace, be still, and know that you are God as you move through this, what appears to be very godless society. All right? Peace. Peace. Wrap it up for today.